I sent a text message to my best friend Jamie and the president of my company, Tara. And I told them that I wasn't in the best place. I told them that I was exhausted.
Blake Lively just made the biggest mistake of this entire legal war, and she did it to herself. Over one weekend, her team filed motions so weak they practically gift-wrapped a victory for Justin Baldoni, dumped evidence that makes her look worse than anything the defense could have produced, and somehow thought including Taylor Swift's cookie recipe in a federal lawsuit was a good idea. Legal experts are not just confused, they are calling this self-sabotage. And once you see everything that just happened, you will understand why people are saying this case is effectively over. Let me show you exactly what went down.
Compartmentalize this character of Ryle as an example, and you remove the abuse. So let's just remove that for a second. So I want to talk about the character outside of the abuse.
To understand why this weekend was a total disaster for Blake Lively, you need to understand just how badly things were already going for her before any of this even dropped. On April 2nd, Judge Lewis Lyman issued a 152-page ruling that didn't just challenge Lively's case, it gutted it. Out of 13 original claims, 10 were thrown out. Every single sexual harassment allegation, every defamation claim, every conspiracy charge, all of it gone. And here is the part that should be making headlines everywhere. Justin Baldoni himself is no longer even a defendant. The man Blake publicly branded a predator, the man she tried to destroy in the press before a single piece of evidence was tested in court, is now legally untouched. What is left are 3 claims: retaliation against Wayfarer Studios, aiding and abetting against a PR firm called TAG, and a breach of contract claim. That is it. 3 claims clinging to life, and after this weekend, even those might not survive.
Just in the last 30 minutes or so, with a court hearing that was happening as we're on the air, wrapping up for this huge Hollywood legal fight between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, after this federal judge tossed out late today most of Lively's claims.
Now here is what most people covering this story keep missing. Judge Lyman did not just dismiss those 10 claims and walk away. He left a trail: footnotes, side references, citations to case law that neither side had even argued yet. Legal analysts noticed it immediately. The judge was building a roadmap. He was practically pointing a finger at the weaknesses still sitting in the case and waiting for someone to do something about it. And this weekend, Wayfarer Studios picked up that roadmap and drove straight through what was left of Blake Lively's legal strategy.
Well, I first optioned this book in 2019, and at the time it had sold just under 1 million copies. And I had never read
Why did you read it? Yeah.
Well, I just started Wayfarer Studios, and at the time my book agent, shout out to Johanna Castillo, sent it to me. And she said, just read it, because I was looking for movies that could be commercial and speak to the human experience.
Were you reading romance novels?
And I had never read a romance novel.
Never?
And she said, just trust me, read it. So I read it, and by the end of the book, I couldn't even read the text on the page.
The first major motion goes after TAG, the agency group, the PR firm Lively accused of helping run a smear campaign against her. And the argument is so clean, it almost feels unfair. California's employment law was built to cover entities that carry out actual employment functions: hiring, firing, compensation, workplace management. TAG is a PR firm. They pitched stories, they ran social media, they called reporters, but they had zero involvement in Blake Lively's employment. They did not hire her, they did not manage her on set, they had nothing to do with her pay, her role, or her working conditions. And if the law only applies to entities performing employment-related functions, then a PR firm running Reddit campaigns and calling the Daily Mail does not qualify, period. And Judge Lyman practically handed this argument to Wayfarer on a silver platter. In his April ruling, he specifically withheld judgment on TAG's liability. He didn't deny it, he didn't grant it, he withheld it. Then he spent 2 full pages laying out a California Supreme Court case that says business entities can only be liable if they carry out employment functions. He did not have to do that, but he did. And now Wayfarer has quoted those exact pages back to the court and said, this is exactly why TAG should be thrown out. And if TAG goes, the aiding and abetting claim automatically collapses with it, because you cannot aid and abet a violation that does not exist. But that was only motion number 1. The second one is where Blake Lively's case truly starts falling apart.
Just in time for their trial, his and Blake Lively's coming up in May, the judge threw out her sexual harassment claims against him. He kept her retaliation claim.
Not something we were considering, but it worked so well in the trailer that I was like, we gotta put this in the movie. was a moment that was very important to me for Lily's journey, because there's something that happens in her life that sort of changes her perspective about what her future is going to be. And as she's considering what her future is going to be, having that song overscore that time in her life was critical. And
This motion attacks the retaliation claim, the one claim Lively's team has been calling the backbone of the entire lawsuit. And the argument hits like a wrecking ball. California's anti-retaliation law protects people who oppose practices that are actually forbidden under the statute. That phrase matters. Practices forbidden under this part. Now, Judge Lyman already ruled that all the alleged harassment, the comments, the boundary violations, the on-set conduct happened in New Jersey, not California. The movie was shot in Hoboken and Jersey City. Lively was a New York resident working on a New York and New Jersey production. And California law does not cover what happened in another state. That is why the harassment claims were already dismissed. But here is where it gets brutal for Blake. Wayfarer's motion now argues, if the underlying conduct was not forbidden by California law, then Blake's complaints about that conduct were not complaints about practices forbidden under California law. And if her complaints were not legally protected activity, then there can be no legal retaliation for making them. It is a chain of logic that flows directly from what the judge already decided. And this is the part that has legal analysts openly saying the judge set this up himself. He pointed to the problem, he cited the law, and then he waited for someone to make the argument. Wayfarer just made it. Now Blake's team will probably fire back with a good faith belief defense. The idea that even if California law technically didn't cover what happened in New Jersey, Blake reasonably believed she was opposing workplace discrimination. But Wayfarer is already shutting that door in the filing. They argue good faith belief only protects you if that belief was objectively reasonable. And if the law clearly did not apply to New Jersey conduct, it was not objectively reasonable for anyone, especially someone surrounded by an army of Hollywood lawyers, to think those complaints were protected under California law. And here is where it gets even more interesting. Sources close to the defense say Baldoni's team has reportedly compiled additional behind-the-scenes material, internal communications, possibly even video from the production, that they believe tells a very different story from the one Blake has been selling publicly. Nothing has been confirmed yet, but the confidence coming from Baldoni's side has been unusually high in recent weeks, and this could be part of the reason. Now let's talk about the most bizarre moment of the entire weekend, the Taylor Swift cookie recipe. Among the 68 exhibits Lively's team filed on April 10th, just weeks before the May 18th trial, was a link to an article about Taylor Swift's cookie recipe. Also included were photos of Lively with Swift, a handwritten note to Ryan Reynolds, and a speech Lively gave about her husband's commitment to family. Baldoni's team immediately objected and asked the judge for extra time to review what they described as a massive, last-minute evidence dump full of material with questionable relevance. On the cookie recipe specifically, the defense said it is exceptionally unlikely that any jury would gain insight from it. And honestly, how could they? Clip 4, insert here. Clip 5, insert here. But this is not just about one ridiculous exhibit. This is about a pattern. Lively's side now has over 40 witnesses listed, more than 800 exhibits, and hundreds of attachments. Far more than any 15-day trial could realistically handle. Some exhibits include unspecified video material, others are 50-page summaries, others are text messages that Lively had access to all along but conveniently submitted only now. This is what critics are calling a flood the zone strategy. Dump so much material so late that the other side cannot possibly prepare, create confusion, force delays, and bury the real weaknesses of the case under an avalanche of paper. And the Taylor Swift angle is not accidental, it is calculated. Critics say Lively's team is deliberately dragging Swift's name back into a case where Swift herself reportedly wants no involvement whatsoever. Sources familiar with Swift's position say the pop star feels exploited by the situation. Court documents allege Swift attended a script discussion at Lively's penthouse, but people close to Swift say she arrived without knowing a meeting was taking place. Reports have also suggested Swift has effectively distanced herself from Lively as this legal drama has spiraled. And yet, here is Blake's legal team, filing cookie recipes and celebrity photos, trying to keep that association alive.
In April 2023, Blake Lively sent Taylor Swift a text saying she needed help with this doofus director, Justin Baldoni. Can you tell him you're excited for the movie? Lively asked, saying an endorsement from the greatest living storyteller will go such a long way. The newly unsealed message shows Taylor Swift replied, "I'll do anything for you." But months later, text appeared to show up.
And now we get to the part critics say reveals Blake Lively's real strategy. because if the retaliation claim gets dismissed, which legal experts now consider increasingly likely, here is the domino effect. The tag claim dies automatically. No underlying violation means nothing to aid and abet. That leaves one claim out of 13. A breach of contract dispute over a production writer. That is not a dramatic courtroom showdown. That is a quiet settlement negotiation. That is lawyers exchanging numbers in a conference room. That is the kind of thing that gets buried in the news cycle and forgotten. But here is the twist. If the case collapses on a jurisdictional technicality, California law not covering New Jersey conduct, Blake walks away with something valuable, a story. I never got my day in court. The jury never heard my side. It was all thrown out on a technicality. That becomes the permanent narrative. That becomes the line repeated in every interview, every statement, every social media post for the rest of her career. And some people watching this case believe that is exactly what she is counting on. Now let me bring in something most people are completely ignoring. The unsealed Sony emails. Because while everyone has been focused on Blake versus Justin, there is a whole other cast of characters who have been saying incredibly revealing things behind closed doors. Earlier this year, hundreds of exhibits were unsealed, and among them were internal communications from Sony Pictures executives. And what those messages reveal is a studio that was privately ripping Blake Lively apart while smiling to her face. One executive, Andrea Giannetti, admitted under oath that she called Lively a terrorist during a conversation with producer Jamie Heath. The context was Lively's 17-point list of demands before returning to set after the SAG-AFTRA strike. Another executive, Sanford Panich, the president of Sony's Motion Picture Group, called her decision to launch her hair care brand during the film's promotional window epic-level stupid and said, "She is done for, it's cooked." And yet, the very same Sony that was privately calling her a terrorist was publicly praising her. The CEO said he wanted to do 12 more movies with her. Giannetti sent Lively a gushing text celebrating opening weekend numbers. That level of two-faced behavior is Hollywood standard, but seeing it in sworn testimony, in black and white, strips away every illusion about how this industry actually operates. And more importantly, it destroys Blake's narrative. Because if the very studio behind her film believed she was the problem, if they thought her behavior was reckless, her judgment was terrible, and her brand launches were sabotaging the movie, then the idea that all the public backlash was some manufactured hit job by Justin Baldoni's PR team suddenly looks a lot harder to sell.
I internalized that as opportunity. We had such a responsibility to this audience to deliver something and to have the opportunity to deliver something for a passionate group of people.
Yes.
As someone who is so deeply passionate myself, I was so excited about that. I would so much rather have that than people who are in.
And on the subject of PR, there is something critical getting lost in the noise. Baldoni's lawyers have argued from day one that the negative public reaction to Lively was organic. It started during the press tour, when her lighthearted tone in interviews about a movie dealing with domestic violence struck audiences as tone-deaf. It grew when she launched her hair care and beverage brands in the same window. The backlash came from real people expressing real frustration, not from bots or some crisis PR operation. And here is another insider detail that has been generating serious buzz. Sources say Baldoni's team has reportedly assembled a significant collection of behind-the-scenes communications and production documents that they believe could directly contradict key parts of Lively's timeline. Some of these materials reportedly include records from crew members and cast that were created in real time during production. If those make it into evidence, they could completely reshape how a jury sees this case.
First of all, congrats on your...
And that is why everything right now feels like it is building toward a collision. The motions to dismiss, the evidence dumps, the cookie recipe absurdity, the fracturing friendship with Taylor Swift, the Sony emails, the May 18th trial date barreling forward, and the failed settlements. Both sides sat in a courtroom for 6 hours in February and could not agree. Another conference happened days ago and failed again. Both sides say they are going to trial, but critics are asking a very simple question: what trial? If the retaliation claim gets knocked out and tag falls with it, there is no explosive courtroom drama, no testimony about smear campaigns and digital manipulation. There is a contract dispute. And for a case that was supposed to expose systemic retaliation in Hollywood, that would be an absolutely staggering collapse. And here is what almost nobody in the mainstream is covering. There is growing speculation that Blake's legal team is quietly preparing for the possibility that everything gets dismissed before trial. And if that happens, the strategy shifts entirely from winning in court to winning in the court of public opinion. The cookie recipe, the Swift photos, the 800 exhibits, critics say all of it could be building toward a narrative that says, they buried my case, they silenced me, the system failed me. Whether you buy that framing or not, it is a powerful story. Magazine covers, documentary deals, interview specials. And that is exactly why some people believe Blake is no longer trying to win the lawsuit. She is trying to win the aftermath. But here is the problem with that strategy. Justin Baldoni is not going away. His legal team has been aggressive, disciplined, and surgical. They dismantled 10 out of 13 claims. They got Baldoni removed as a defendant entirely. They got the judge to sanction Blake's lawyers for what the court called legally frivolous and factually baseless claims. And now they are targeting the last 3 with motions that legal experts say have a very strong chance of landing. So the idea that Blake can just walk away and control the narrative, that only works if Baldoni lets her. And everything we have seen so far says he will not.
I had a intense heat.
And there is one more layer to this. Blake is reportedly trying to exclude certain evidence from trial, including the Sony emails that show executives privately calling her a terrorist. She is also trying to block testimony and documents that critics say could be deeply embarrassing to her position. Meanwhile, Baldoni's team wants everything in front of the jury. Every text, every email, every production record. They want the full picture. And one more insider detail that has been making waves. There are reportedly additional communications from within Blake's own circle, involving her representatives and industry contacts, that the defense believes could show a coordinated effort to control media coverage long before the lawsuit was even filed. If those communications make it into evidence, critics say they could completely reframe this from a victim versus predator story into a battle of dueling PR machines where both sides were playing hardball from the start. And that contrast says everything. One side is trying to limit what the jury sees, the other wants full transparency. When you are confident, you put everything on the table. When you are worried, you try to control the frame. And right now, Blake Lively looks like someone desperately trying to control the frame. Clip 11 insert here. And here is the final thought. This case was never just about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It was about how powerful people weaponize the legal system, the media, and public sympathy. It was about whether accusations alone can destroy someone, or whether the evidence actually has to back them up. It was about whether emotional framing and narrative control can survive the cold scrutiny of a federal courtroom. And what we are watching right now, the motions, the dismissals, the cookie recipes, the failed settlements, is the answer to that question becoming brutally clear. Some people are calling this justice. Others are calling it a failure of the system. And if Blake was genuinely mistreated, losing on a jurisdictional technicality is a painful outcome. But if this case was built on exaggeration, emotional manipulation, and a strategy designed to win press coverage rather than a trial, then what is happening now is exactly what the legal system is supposed to do. Cut through the noise, look at the law, and decide based on facts, not feelings. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. There is a lot more coming on this case in the days ahead.